Everybody, welcome to Outlier on Air, the podcast where we talk to the founders, disruptors, and mavens of the world. As always, I'm your host, Ever Gonzalez. On today's episode, we have Eva Bilick. She is an actress, writer, producer, and podcaster. Eva, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this show.
Thanks. Yeah, we're excited to have you for a lot of different reasons. We were talking off air that I think you're doing something that's really cool, but I think it's going to benefit our audience as well. So we want to get into that in this episode. But before we get into your podcast, all the other stuff that you're doing, being an actress and a producer and a writer, let's start off with this question. What makes you an outlier?
I was very fortunate when I moved to LA to meet several people who told me that there are no rules to creativity.
I love that.
And I took that and I ran with it. And it's something that I live by. And I think everyone should keep it in mind. There are no rules. Do whatever you want. And you see it in TV shows and movies all the time. And now obviously podcasts are living this huge life. And so you're seeing it with podcasts. People are experimenting, grabbing their friends, making things, collaborating. Basically, whatever you want to do in any medium is possible. You just got to find the right team. So I've been very lucky to learn those lessons and have the right people around me.
That's a huge lesson to learn, right? I mean, it took me a long time to figure that out for the most part, but here you are, young, ambitious, talented, and you know this already. Like, that's a deadly combination.
I just am so lucky to have met the people, and I'm including you in that statement because I think when I first was interested in audio dramas, you and Ariel Nissenblatt were like my podcast professors. Mm-hmm. And it was just really such a blessing to be able to like look up your work, see what you guys are doing, get advice. Outlier is such a huge inspiration for anybody interested in podcasting. And I've just really learned a lot. So it's been really fortunate to be able to like have those people around me.
That's a great compliment. Thank you so much. Do you think that this attitude that you have now with there are no rules, which I love, by the way, I mean, I think we live our life that way and we try to run our business that way as well. Is it a generational thing? Because, older people for the most part, right? We had gatekeepers when it came to business and being creative on TV or the radio, right? There were those barriers. Now, do you feel that way? And do the people around you feel that way because it's kind of wide open because of social media and how, the barrier entry is so much lower? Or is it truly your mindset, or maybe a combination?
I think it's a combination. I think social media changed the game with this. And I'm interested to know your thoughts because now everybody has a camera and everybody has a platform. So whatever you want to do with that, I think is just so powerful. And we recorded my audio drama last year and in someone's garage. He bought some equipment. Mm-hmm. He turned his garage into a studio and we all piled in there and did it over a few days. We didn't need like a fancy studio. And so I think, and when it comes to really anything, like the way you want to write a script, the way you want to like craft your movie, whatever it is, I feel like there's that mindset piece of like, well, just because somebody hasn't done it before doesn't mean I can't be the first. But yeah, I think having social media at our disposal and having like really just a wide range of equipment available to like us masses, and not just like the fancy people with all the money, I think has really changed the game for a lot of people. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think for a long time, people were waiting for somebody to hand them an opportunity or a job or this equipment or access to some of this stuff, where now, the younger the kids get, right? I mean, my oldest is 13 and he's already talking about doing different things. And I'm like, I don't know that I was even close to thinking that way when I was his age. I think it is a little bit of a generational thing. Social media has a lot to do with it, but I think kids are not afraid to break the rules, like you kind of talked about it, and just take chances. Because what's the worst that's going to happen, right? You spend your time putting this podcast together in your garage with some friends. If it doesn't take off, okay, that's okay. If it takes off, how amazing would that be, right? And it has taken off, and we'll get into that here in just a bit. But that's what I love about podcasting in general. I mean, it fits in other industries as well, but for sure, podcasting. Girl in Space, which is a very popular podcast that we've had Sarah on our show before
I
and
love
on our
that show.
stage. She's doing it in her home, right, with one mic, and like she's just a great writer, and she's making it happen.
Yeah,
Again, she wasn't waiting for somebody to hand her an opportunity.
I know. I love that. My roommate was a big inspiration because she had a similar thing where she did an interview style podcast about dating a couple years back. And she just bought herself a snowball mic and like recorded at this table that I'm sitting right now, and learned on the job. And she did a great job.
Let's kind of work our way backwards. Let's talk about your podcast now, and then we'll talk about some of your writing and your acting, your gigs and as an actress. Your podcast, you came onto our radar when you applied to be to pitch your show at one of our festivals here this past May. You were one of the 5 finalists. You pitched live virtually in front of our audience, and it was stiff competition, but you came out on top. You won the competition because of your show. So let's talk about your show, A Place Called Fairneck. What is it? Why should we care?
A Place Called Fairneck is an audio drama about a small town in New Jersey just before Passover, and some weird things are happening. I think maybe the plagues are coming back just in time for the holidays. So we have a very precocious 12-year-old narrator who fancies herself an investigative journalist, who's telling the story of the last week in this town, all the strange things that are happening, and mystery and humor ensues. So it's a super fun story, and I had a blast putting it together.
I've seen pictures and video of you and your team in the garage, and just it looks like you guys are having a great time. You're putting this together, and I'm always curious when I hear about these podcasts that are, you know, more audio dramas or scripted shows. Why this story? Why now for you?
This story is, at the end of the day, about the choices we make and the consequences that those choices have. And something that I learned in my adult life is that my actions or inaction have consequences. And, you know, I've had to learn that in easy ways and in hard ways. And I think I really wanted to somehow communicate that just out loud to whoever wants to listen. And especially, this goes without saying, in our political climate, I think people really want to hear someone like take responsibility for themselves. And so I knew I had this message in my brain that I really wanted to communicate, and I wasn't really sure how. And then separately from that, I was really interested in putting an audio drama together because I had been listening to a lot of scripted podcasts and loving them. So I thought it would just be a fun project to do. And I'm Jewish, and I grew up religious and in a very Jewish town in New Jersey. So I was like, oh, it might be fun to, you know, they say, write what you know. So I was like, Passover's coming up in a bit. It was the fall. I was like, okay, about 6 months. I can maybe just put something together for that holiday. So I thought I would use the themes of the plagues and sort of themes of that holiday to illustrate this. So there's like a ton, every episode is like packed with humor. There's different characters. People are doing hilarious voices. There's like a whole world inside this story. And then at the end of the day, there's this kind of cool message that people can take from it.
So much to unpack there, right? With when you started this, we'll get to the team and a couple of things here in just a sec, but when you started this, you guys kind of burst onto the scene a little bit. You were ranked 14th on Apple Podcasts comedy fiction section. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that because I am not a podcast person. This is my first one. And
you are a storyteller, which obviously shows in the work that you're doing.
Thank you. I grew up around writers. My mom writes and my older sister writes. And so I always loved writing short stories, and that's what I did for many years. And then I started acting, and I moved out here for acting. And so, yeah, storytelling has been in a big part of my life for a long time in different ways. And so I thought this would be just a really fun medium to explore. And I am endlessly grateful to my team. I think that they made it way better than I ever could have imagined. So I think that really helped get us a little bit noticed once we launched.
Now, as indie podcasters, we wear a lot of different hats, right? I mean, it would be awesome if you could just focus on the writing and the voiceover stuff, but you have to worry about the team, building the team, schedules, production, all that stuff. Did that come easy to you? And how do you feel about it now?
It came a little easy. I will say that, because I've been some kind of assistant for like years, just office assistant, personal assistant, whatever.
Well organized, right? Yeah.
So I've gotten some good experience knowing what needs to happen. And when I first moved here, I've been in LA for 3 years. And when I first moved here, I made a 12 episode web series. So that was an awesome experience to be able to understand on the job what it means to produce something. And so I just took a lot of the lessons from that and from my day jobs. And I think I'm a naturally kind of organized person, which helps. And so I made sure that like there were always snacks and meal breaks and extra copies of the scripts. And it's those little details that really make the difference for people, so that they can come and just hang out, do their job, and go home.
So what was it like as you were reaching out to your team, your future team, and trying to talk them into doing this with you? Because I'm assuming in the beginning, maybe even now, $0 coming in, right? That this is part of they're taking time to kind of do this for the most part. What was that conversation like with a lot of your team members?
Yeah, definitely $0. I knew I would have to put in money for the engineering and for post-production. But I didn't really have money to pay my actors, which is generally not something that I support, but there was just nothing for them. And luckily I have a community of actors who I love, and will often do each other's projects for no money. And in exchange, we get footage, or in this case, something for their audio reel. And so that was kind of the deal. And I was so nervous to ask people. I was like, oh no one's going to want to do this story. It's, it's silly. What a waste of time. And so I was really down on myself and nervous about it. But I just kind of went through my Rolodex of actors. I did have some people read for certain parts, audition for certain parts. And then at the end of the day, it was all people I had either worked with before or was friends with, or kind of knew tangentially. And there was one woman, the woman she plays a few parts, plays Beth and Esther. She is an incredible actress, Emily. I was so nervous to ask. I'd been a big fan of hers, and she's married to our sound engineer, who also played the role of Ben. And Kyle, my writing coach, and who turned into a consulting producer on the project, was like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, she's not going to punch you in the face for asking. Like, just do it. Like, she's been in so many things. So I asked her, and she said yes. And he was right. Like, worst case scenario, she was going to say no. I was not going to die. Yeah. So worst case scenario, people say no. That's right. That was the big lesson.
Move on, and not a big deal. Nobody's going to die for the most part, right? Nobody's going to lose a house for the most part. So yeah.
And I was very lucky, and everybody said yes. And everyone just brought their A game, because it's not just about the acting, because obviously that's a big part, but you also want to be somebody that people want to be around, because you're together for like long hours. And everyone was just, I knew they would be. That's part of the reason why I asked certain people, is because I knew they would be like really up for anything, fun to be around, just kind of have that positive atmosphere, which I think is really important.
And with all those people, and just with things in general, there must have been some challenges. What were some challenges that that you were facing as you were putting this together and as you were producing this?
Schedules are the worst. Everybody's schedule changes. People are like, oh, I have to leave 3 hours early. I can't make it until this time. That was really annoying. There was one night where I called Kyle, our consulting producer, and Sean, our sound engineer, And I made them join the same call. And I was like, you guys, I'm freaking out. I've been working on schedules for the last 4 hours. I need you to take this. And they were amazing. They were like, no problem. We got it. Nice. They took the schedule, they just ran with it. And the next morning I showed up and they were like, we completely reworked everything. So when you need help, you need help.
What about surprises? There must have been some surprises about you yourself or the team or just the process in general.
Yeah, I found it so hard to step into acting when I was in producer brain.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
It took me so much longer than had I just shown up as a voice actor to get into the roles. And luckily everybody was really patient with me as I kind of did like a lot of first takes for everything. Because you're in this like business mode and you're like, everything's got to be done. You're checking things off your list. And so it's hard to kind of totally relax, find the voice, and just connect with your scene partner. So I found that hard. I also found it hard because sometimes with the positions of the mics, you can't look your scene partner in the eye. And if you're a screen actor or a theater actor, you're used to that connection. So I found that hard to really just rely on the voice.
This whole process must have been fun, tiring, all that stuff, but rewarding, right? Tell us where you're at with the show right now.
I am so happy about how everything turned out. It was very tiring and stressful sometimes, but for the most part, it was really fun. Yeah. And I had these amazing people that I could count on. And I had never written so much. It was like kind of really awesome to be able to say, oh, wow, I wrote 6 episodes. Each one is like 30 pages long. And we had a little tag episode. So I really wrote a lot of pages, and obviously rewriting was a huge part of the writing process. So that was kind of fun. And then once we launched, the podcast community is so wonderful and welcoming. I was really nervous about it because I was following all these people on Twitter. That was one of the pieces of advice Ariel told me when we first talked about podcast. She was like, get on Twitter, follow all the audio dramas. And I did. And people are so great and have these amazing shows that are huge. And everybody was so welcoming. So that was really nice. And really, we were getting really great feedback for the episodes. And we were just like posting on social media and doing sort of like whatever. I didn't have a huge platform, but I just kind of did what I could promoting. And one of the most exciting days since we launched was being able to pitch at Outlier over the summer, and getting to connect with other podcasters and hear their pitches and sort of understand the landscape a little more. And the panel was just truly amazing, to be able to connect with all of those folks. So it was really exciting. Who knows about a season 2 at this point? It's going to be hard to get that many people in a close quarter kind of room. Yeah. So I think we're sort of, I have kind of a season 2 outline that we're sort of just hanging out with, and I'm working on something that's a little bit more simple right now.
So you are a writer, an actress, all that good stuff. But as far as, let's focus on podcasting for a little bit longer. Yeah. Maybe a season 2, maybe now, you don't know. Anything else in podcasting coming our way?
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm at the very beginning stages. So Kyle, who I mentioned earlier, approached me a couple months ago. He said, hey, we're not sure how exactly to get Fairneck up and running for season 2. Because he and I don't really want to do anything remote if we can help it. If we can get everybody in the same room, it just makes all the difference, I think. So he was like, why don't we work on a new audio drama? Make it a little bit simpler, maybe 2 actors per episode, put out an episode every month or so. And I was like, yes, that's amazing. So we had a really fun idea, and we're still kind of fleshing it out. But all I will say is that the idea is super fun, really funny, ridiculous. And I'm just excited to get into some absurd storytelling.
Obviously, you're very talented. There are a lot of other talented podcasters. One of the biggest problems that I see in the podcasting industry is discoverability, right? It's hard to discover, to find new shows. There's so many good ones out there. How do we know what to listen to, all that good stuff? you guys obviously have a hit show. People loved it. Those that knew about you. How do you go, other than social media, how do you go about telling people about this? Because obviously the more the merrier, right? I mean, with what you're doing, how are you trying to get people to find your show?
Yeah, that's hard, right?
Yeah.
Because the um, most people use Apple to listen to podcasts, and they're very secretive about how they promote
Stuff. Yeah.
shows. And some people will get on their new and noteworthy list, and that's amazing if you get on that. And other people with just as many reviews or ratings or followers will not get on the list. So it's kind of impossible. For me, social media was a really big help. Twitter, especially if you're not on Twitter, I mean, I find Twitter to be really overwhelming and intense sometimes, but if you can just pop on to follow the podcasts that you like or that you want to get to know, everybody's really engaged. So if you're following people and you're commenting on their stuff, like they're going to follow you right back. They're going to listen to you. And there are certain accounts dedicated to promoting podcasts, at least in the audio drama sphere. And I imagine it's true for all sorts of podcasts. So get on their radar just by following them. You can shoot them a message, you can comment on their stuff. And that was a really big help. That helped us reach people that I don't know directly. And then it always helps to have people who are somehow connected to your show or your friends and family talk about it or promote it on their platforms. So it just kind of creates these concentric circles of creating a bigger network.
Well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. This show obviously is great. People are discovering you. You're getting, I'm assuming, pretty good numbers when it comes to downloads and people paying attention to it. And so this next question might be a little bit unfair, but let's just roll with it. Are you a better producer, writer, or actress?
I know I'm a good, something that I struggle with personally is that I know I'm a good producer because I have a nice relationship with my left brain and we're very structured and organized. I love acting more than anything and I love writing, but that's harder for me. It's harder for me to settle into my right brain. Once I kind of get in the zone, I can run with it and I love it. But I'm hyper schedulized. Is that a word? But I'm just kind of, I can be really rigid. So for me to kind of be able to like get in that mindset where I can just be really silly or do a really dramatic scene or write a story I'm excited about, that I have to work towards. So I like meditate a lot.
Yeah, it's funny. We've throughout the years we've mentored a lot of just podcasters, entrepreneurs, and just people in general with the stuff that we do. And so we hear this where they're pretty good at this, but their true love is something else, and so they're trying to figure out whether to double down and be even better at what they're really, really good at, or try to kind of put that in the back burner a little bit so that they can be better at the thing that they love. What's that going to look like for you? I mean, opportunity wise, it's wide open for you. What are you going to pursue? I'm assuming all of them, but there must be one that there's more opportunity for as far as you being able to make a living off of it.
Yeah, I imagine that if I know I'm good at producing, but I don't like it. It's kind of boring and it can be stressful. But I imagined if I just wanted to be a producer, like a film producer, that could be really lucrative down the road. I probably won't pursue that. For now, I tend to produce just my own stuff because it's the easiest thing or it's the necessary thing. But the thing that I am like passionate about in my heart is more the performance side, the creative side, the writing piece. So that's what I'll pursue. Not nearly as lucrative, but more fun for me.
Sure. Yeah.
What do you find for yourself? Do you find that like one area is more natural for you and one area is harder?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out too. No, I think just people in general I like, right? So I think that's why these events are so much bring me so much joy, and you know, they're not our biggest moneymaker, but it doesn't matter. I would do it for free for the most part, right? If I needed to. But yeah, the stuff that I struggle with, I struggle with being consistent when it comes to like my social media game or just putting things together. I'll do whatever I want today, right? Nobody's like looking down on me or telling me I need to be here or there in that meeting. I just kind of, whether it's good or bad, I don't know. But yeah, I just kind of flow through my week and I work on projects that I want to work on. And we have these 3 festivals, as you know, every year. And it's great because I work really, really hard for a couple months, have this amazing experience, and then I get to relax for a while. And then I do it again. If that, even though it's a full-time job, if I felt that it was like a 9 to 5 type of an experience, I would struggle and I would hate it. One of the things that I loved growing up was sports and music, but there's no way that I want to have a career in sports or music, because then I would stop loving sports and music, right? With podcasting, it's a little bit different. I love podcasting. I love podcasters. I love listening to podcasts. But it doesn't feel like a career yet, just because I have the flexibility to kind of work with people like you, people that I just want to hang out with and learn from even and all that. And so, yeah, I struggle with more of the business side is easy for me. The creative side is I don't know how to rate that on my end, but it's more of the connection that I have with individuals that I think I'm pretty good at, and being able to provide a little bit of a platform for them to kind of shine a little bit, even if it's for an hour on our physical stage or virtual stage. That brings me joy.
I agree that you were very good at that. And I love that feeling that you were describing of like, oh, I just go with it. Like whatever I want to do. That's such a healthy way of living. I think we should all live like that.
Yeah.
What do you want to work on today?
For sure. And, unfortunately, not everybody gets the chance. And I haven't always had that chance, right? But luckily we're in a position where, yeah, if I want to work with a certain individual or a certain group or on a certain project, we go with it. And Outlier has kind of morphed into, if we've done this for 6 years now with Outlier, right? If I was truly dedicated to making Outlier a bigger company, more revenue, I would run it completely different than when I'm running it, how I'm running it now, just because I go from project to project, not really worrying about revenue as much, right? My wife calls me a filthy capitalist with a hippie heart, right? I love making money. I'd like to think I'm pretty good at it, but I also give away a lot of free products and services just because I'd rather have the experience and have everybody kind of come in and experience one of our shows or one of our services than to make a buck. And so it's weird. I would run it if I had to give advice to or be a consultant for Outlier on the outside. I would be like, no, this is all wrong. Let's do it like this, and like this. And then we can continue to grow the way we're going. But I'm fine with the way we're doing it now, just because it's still, I'm still able to feed my kids, but I'm still able to kind of have fun and do whatever I want from day to day.
It's amazing. And it's important too, because you're talking to a lot of creatives who don't have the means to attend things or buy certain things. So to be able to offer that kindness and say, hey, we have these limited spots for people who are struggling, but who are really creative and want to attend. I mean, that's really generous.
Yeah, well, and so we do have those things, but we also reach out to sponsors and we're like, hey, listen, we want to make it available for everybody. So they sponsor a lot of our attendees that can't, for whatever reason, pay the full price. And so, yeah, a lot of our sponsors are kind of on board with that mentality. So we kind of give them a lot of credit as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. It just, at the end of the day, it just brings people together and it just kind of creates a nice feeling of equality amongst everybody.
I think so. So let's kind of move forward a little bit too with the actors side of all of this. You had a web series, Weird in Bed.
Yeah.
Great title. Let's talk about it.
I wanted to make something because that was the first piece of advice I got when I moved here. Everybody said, no one's just an actor anymore. You got to be an actor and a writer and producer. And I was like, great, done. So I wanted to make something that was super simple, something that would be really easy to make, which if anybody is thinking about producing a web series or a podcast or whatever, think like a producer first and then come up with your idea, because it just makes it cheaper and easier on the days that you're going. So I was like, okay, I'll have it be, I'll have each episode be really short. I'll have there be 2 actors in the same room every time. So now I just need a joke. I need a thing, an idea. And I was like, well, everybody's got a bed. So that could be kind of funny to do like a dating podcast. And I didn't want it to be too like raunchy or anything. Yeah. I just wanted it to be weird situations that happen to be taking place in a bed. So we shot 12 episodes. We released 10, and they're super fun. They're basically sketches. They're like 2 minutes long. And I compiled stories from, there were a couple that were based on my own life. I remember one, I was on a date with this guy and his head was I can't even explain it. It looked like a square rock. And the more I looked at his face throughout the date, I was like, why? Like, I've never seen a human like that. You look like a cartoon. Like, he just kind of has a square rock shaped head. And I thought it was so funny. And so now we have a whole episode about that, where I like can't get over this guy's head. And he was like, and then he gets really weirded out and he leaves. So it's just basically kind of silly. Or like there's one guy who I don't know if I can talk about drugs on your show, so feel free to take this out. Or there's one episode where some guy asks if I want to get high, and I assume he's talking about marijuana, and then he pulls out heroin and he starts shooting heroin. Nice. And then I find an excuse to leave. So that is not based on real life. That I just thought would be funny. So I just thought of a couple stories from my life, a couple stories that would be funny on camera. I got a couple I was inspired by a couple stories from friends, and it was just an easy, fun 3 days on set. I found someone's apartment to shoot in. She was really generous, lending us her place for 3 days. And
it's funny how, I just started this podcast series. I just started this web series. But so the podcast series, like we mentioned, was ranking really high on Apple Podcasts. And this web series was picked up by a film festival, or a couple different film festivals, right?
Yeah, it showed at a few film festivals. There's this awesome site, again, for anyone who is new to the film world, there's an awesome site called Film Freeway. If you're looking to apply to festivals, and it just has all the festivals basically in one place, and you can just apply directly through there. So I found that really helpful. So I just found some festivals that I thought would be really welcoming to some comedy and some web series content. And they screened it was at 3 festivals in 2019. And then there's this website called WhoHaHa that Elizabeth Banks started, and it's all about women in comedy. And I was a big fan for a long time, and I thought it was a long shot, but I sent them an episode, and they got back to me the next day, and they were like, okay, great, it'll be on the site tomorrow.
Oh, really?
And I was like, oh shoot, I'm not ready to launch. So I like sped everything up and quickly got everything sort of solid on our end to release the episodes. And that was a really cool surprise.
So there's a little bit of luck to all of this, but obviously a lot of talent that needs to kind of fuel this type of exposure, both in your podcast and the web series. There are a lot of talented people doing a lot of cool stuff nobody knows about. I'm just trying to figure out why you right now, because there are millions of other people that are trying to do similar things, but you're getting some real traction, right? Without the help of some of these bigger production companies right now.
Oh, thank you. It's really nice of you to say. I think what helps me is both being able to stay really laser focused and say, okay, great, this is going to happen by this date, no matter what. And then you have to be smart enough to know what you don't know and bring people in that are better than you at certain areas. So my friend Catherine Dudas she's an incredibly talented director. And she's worked in comedy for a long time. And we met because she had a web series that I found to be really funny. And I took her out for coffee, and I was like, can you tell me everything that you did so I can learn from you and steal from you? And she was really generous, and she became a really good friend. And I sent her some episodes of Weird in Bed to just kind of look over, ask if she had any thoughts. And she offered to direct, which was perfect because I was going to ask her anyway. And I was like, yes, let's do it. She was like, don't pay me. I've never directed a web series before. So, I mean, she did like her own, but never anyone else's. And since then, she's gone on to direct really amazing things. But so she had such a strong vision, and she really believed in the project and took it really seriously, as like silly as it was. And I got connected through like a friend of a friend Sean, who I used as my DP and then used again as a sound engineer and a voice actor on Fairneck. So, you find the right people and you end up just kind of bringing them back over and over again because you know that they'll deliver and you know that they're fun to be around. So the team really made all the difference.
It's important for sure.
Yeah.
And obviously they believe in you and the projects that you're working on, or else they wouldn't stick around, right?
Yeah, that's a really nice way to put it. They must, because sometimes I can be a little ridiculous with my requests, like, hey, can we get this sound that's no one's ever made? Can you sort of hunt this very specific thing for like 4 hours and try and find it for like a 2-second bit in episode 3? And they're like, sure, great, we're down. People who are just up for anything are really great. And you got to bring that yourself too. You got to be up for anything. You got to be up for like working super hard.
When we do these episodes on our show, right, we have 430 plus episodes and stuff. I tend to focus a lot on the person and just the positive experiences that they've had. And I sometimes listen back and I'm like, we should have done a little bit more, dug in a little bit deeper. I don't want to be the Jimmy Fallon of, interviews where everything is perfect, everything's nice, but you're young, you're talented, you're living in LA. That's a lot of people's dream right now. But what's the downside, or what's keeping you up at night right now that's maybe people aren't familiar with, or some of the struggles out there as you're trying to navigate this life of yours?
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that question because I think it's important to know. It's so nice of you to say that I am talented. I go back and forth to, believing in yourself is a muscle that you got to flex. So sometimes I think I am. And then other times I'm like, well, you asked what's keeping me up at night. I'm like, well, I've been here for 3 years. I can't find an agent. Nobody wants to sign me. I have some projects that have done well and I'm really proud of them and really excited about them. But I can't seem to get things to the level where I want them. Like, I was thinking about pitching Fairneck as an animated show, which is something that I might still be interested in the future. I think COVID kind of made everything a little bit more complicated, but it was much harder than I thought it would be to make those connections, to put that pitch package together, to justify to people why I thought it would be a good show. So I think, it's such a ridiculous lesson because you hear over and over again, there's a lot of rejection in the industry. But I think living it is interesting because I have to be like, oh, okay, yes, I've heard there's a lot of rejection and now I am living the rejection in certain respects. So I'm just sort of connecting those dots. So it can be challenging when you feel like you have a lot to offer and you don't have the kinds of people that you wish would say like, oh, great, why don't you join my roster of clients? Or like, why don't I take you up on that offer to create that project, or take you up on that offer to like buy me coffee and ask me questions, whatever it is. So yeah, all that stuff can be tough for sure.
So for those that are listening that maybe don't understand, so is being signed by an agent the thing that needs to happen in order for you to kind of get to that level, or can you kind of do it without that type of representation? I'm sure it's harder. Right?
Yeah. So when I say, right, I should be more specific. So when I say agent, in my case, I'm talking about for my acting career. There's different kinds of agents you can have, or you can have a manager. So for the last 18 months, I've been reaching out to different kinds of representation. I'm not that picky. I'm like, great, let's do this. And I haven't, and what it means to be signed is they're like, okay, great, we'll have you on our roster and we'll if what do I say? They're like, okay, great. We'll either send you out for auditions or set up meetings for you. Different people will do different things. You can totally get an audition, book jobs without that. But most of the stuff that you'll see on TV tends to go only through agents and managers. So it's just those bigger auditions and those bigger jobs and more money at the end of the day. That is possible, a little more accessible if you have a good rep on your side who's kind of advocating for you.
So you've been there for 3 years. You've been in LA for 3 years now. Have you given yourself a deadline that you need to do certain things by a certain date, or have you burned the boats?
No, I actually have really strong feelings about that.
Oh,
I don't think you should give yourself a deadline. I think if you come to a point where you're like, this doesn't make me happy anymore and I hate this, then like go do something that makes you happy. Life is short. But if you're like, I'm in it to win it with this, and whenever it happens, then I think just keep going, because you hear these stories of people working for like 10 or 20 years before they hit that like quote unquote big break, start making more money and start getting better jobs. And it's not a linear path.
yeah.
Creativity is a really weird lifestyle, a really weird pathway. So if you have the stomach for it and can like find creative ways to make money and just keep really awesome people around you, take classes, meet people, like you will build that network and build that community. You just don't know when. Timing is a blessing and a curse.
And so far you have the stomach for it. I mean, you're all in. This is something that you're pursuing and something that you want done, obviously.
Yeah, I'm all in. And what was so nice about making the podcast was realizing that there are so many avenues for pursuing the creative arts. So I can maybe get a writing job in the future on a really cool show or film. And I can pursue like voice acting, and it doesn't have to just be what I originally thought it would be, which was like just to come and like act for TV, which would be awesome. But there are so many cool opportunities.
Well, let's start to wrap up with this last few questions. You're writing a script for, a movie script, right? I mean, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, I had an idea for a feature film, and I kind of kept putting it in the drawer and saying maybe later, because writing a feature film sounds really exhausting. And then I was like, well, I think I basically wrote a feature film with my podcast. I think I wrote more than a feature film with my podcast, so I can do it. So once I stopped being afraid, I started putting what's called a beat sheet together and putting the idea together. And it's very loosely based on, I wouldn't even say it's loosely based. It uses certain elements of my childhood and my background. And because I just think it's nice to bring your own perspective and your own life into your stories somehow. So like I said earlier, I grew up religious. So it has a little bit of that element to it of somebody who kind of like leaves a religious community. But it's really just about a family that's a little bit broken coming together, because I love stories about family. I think family dynamics are super interesting. No. So I'm really excited about it, and we'll see what happens.
So I like that too, because whether it's a perfect little family or a broken family, I mean, we all kind of experience those things, and I love those type of human stories. Good, yeah, congrats. We're excited about it.
Thank you. What are some projects you're working on? I know you do 1,000 things.
Yeah,
anything you're particularly excited right now?
We're trying to figure out what 2021 is going to look like, right? Again, we wish that we can do more in-person events, but we're going to continue to focus on the podcast. Again, I would, even if nobody was listening to the show, I would still do it just because I get to do this, right, with cool people on a regular basis. So the podcast will continue to go well, I'm hoping. And then just projects to come along, right? We're helping a few different people host their own virtual events, right? They're not outlier events, but we're kind of the team behind it. So we've been doing that for a little bit, and it doesn't feel like a job, which, I feel guilty sometimes, right? So we've homeschooled our kids for the last 3 years, right? Even pre-COVID. My wife is a professor at a university, and she works from home even before COVID as well. And then I do this, and I kind of do whatever I want. And so it's kind of, I don't know, it's felt like it's been a little bit too easy. And I feel bad sometimes because a lot of our friends and people that we know, it's not as easy for them. Right. And then I'm like, what can I do more? And so I'm trying to figure out how to use the talents that I have or the platform that I have or whatever to kind of help those in need. And I don't know what that looks like. And for me, that's what keeps me up at night. I'm trying to figure out what I can do because there's a lot still left in my tank, right? I feel like there's still a lot more that I can give. And sometimes I feel like a fat cat just enjoying life and not giving back as much as I could, as much as I can.
That is so nice. I think you do give a lot. I mean, truly, I would have been so lost without your work and your platform at the start of my podcasting experience. So I already think you do a lot, but if you're wanting to do more, I support it. God bless. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll figure it out soon. Cause I said, I want to 2021. I kind of want to just go full tilt, right? Again, I think I've been cruising for the last few years, which is great because I'm home all the time with the kids and I'm able to kind of spend time with them. And but as they get a little bit older, yeah, I feel like I can do more and still focus on my kids. So we'll see. But thanks for asking that. Yeah, we're trying to figure that out now.
That's exciting.
Let's end with this. When we have you back on the show in 3 years, what are we going to be talking about?
Oh, love that question. Well, Ever, 3 years from now, Eva is going to say, I am so excited to have gotten my feature film script off the ground. We raised the money. Everybody was super collaborative and wonderful to be around. It was a great experience. And I'm booking some TV roles now. I did finally get an agent, which was really exciting. And of course, my heart is still in podcasts, making audio dramas whenever I can, coming up with ridiculous stories. The Fairneck team is having a reunion next week, and we're just going to get some drinks and catch up. So it's been a great 3 years. So glad we don't have to wear masks all the time anymore.
That's right. That's perfect. Listen, if anybody can do it, it's you, right? We're not just saying this because you're on our show. We have people on our show that we like and that we feel are talented and just good people. You're definitely one of those people, and you're part of the Outlier family now, and we're glad that you are. I think obviously we're definitely going to have that conversation in 3 years, and we're looking forward to continuing to follow your success and everything that you're working on. So those that are listening that want to follow you online, where can we find you?
I am at Eva Bilick, Bilick, on Instagram, Twitter. You can find me on Facebook if anybody uses Facebook. I feel like the people who lead groups are like the Facebook heroes, but yeah, I get really overwhelmed by Facebook for some reason. LinkedIn, if you want to be professional. Yeah, I'd love to connect. If anybody has questions, if you're thinking about putting together an audio drama or a web series or a film, and you've never done it before and you have any questions about putting that together, I'm happy to answer anything offline. Perfect. So Outliers, you can go to outlierhq.com. That's outlierhq.com. First of all, subscribe to the podcast, share, review it. But there you're going to find links to Eva's website, podcast, social media accounts. Connect with her. She's amazing. She's going to continue to grow, and we're looking forward to every step of the way. Eva, this was fun. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ever. This was awesome. Outliers, we'll talk to you tomorrow.